agenda of regular meeting, July, this says regular meeting. This is a special meeting, right? Or am I looking at the wrong packet?
Oh, no, it should say special.
No, so it's just a typo, okay. Special meeting, July 8th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Roll call, please, Madam Secretary.
Vice President April Brandon.
Did you say Vice President April Brandon?
Wrong meeting.
Did something happen?
Wrong meeting.
Here.
Vice President Joe Mitchell.
Here.
Secretary Megan Hill. Here. Treasurer Natalie Nevanovich is unnecessary absent. Trustee Kristen Watt.
Here.
And Trustee Shannon Cole.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. And for the first order of business, I'd like to ask to make a motion to excuse Natalie Nevanovich.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, and all in favor say aye. Aye. All against say nay. Motion carried. Okay. Approval of agenda outside of the typo that says regular meeting instead of special. Reconciliation.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Watt.
Second.
Second by Mishler. Madam Secretary, roll call agenda. Roll vote, please.
President April Brandon.
Yes.
Vice President Joe Mitchell.
Yes.
Secretary Megan Hill. Yes. Trustee Kristen Watt.
Yes.
Trustee Shannon.
Yes.
Motion carried. Public comments, agenda and non-agenda. Any comments?
No.
Okay. Tina has no comments.
No public.
No public. 2022-2023 budget reconciliation. Mr. Director.
Madam President, I know you've probably all seen this through emails. The first item is a printout from our accounting firm that shows all of our payroll for the period from 2023 to 2024, the fiscal year. And mine down at the bottom, just for comparison. And the following page is why we got into the situation. My error exclusively, no one else committed this error. I did not put director salary or trustee wages when processing the budget last year, which leaves a deficit of $24,167. Our budget for Class 4 libraries is below the average for Class 4 libraries, as I said. I gave raises to all the staff members, and I hired one full-time person and moved one part-time person to full-time. And all librarians and managers placed on an equal hourly basis. We are below the entry-level wage of librarians among Class 4 libraries.
I do know that Natalie had some questions regarding using both net and gross
Yes.
in reconciliation form. Can you please
I can comment
clarify?
on that. Yes. Net is what we actually pay and the employees pay. We pay wages, we transfer taxes, is how the saying goes in accounting. The taxes are withheld from the employees' paychecks, so they are paying their own taxes in a convoluted way, if that makes sense. If you notice on my earnings, they withheld $10,787 from me. And we pay unemployment, which we don't have to pay because we're a library. We pay FICA and we pay Medicare. And those are all accounted for in the budget.
So can I ask a quick question? So net and gross, just like our normal, like a normal payroll check, what she's asking about the adjustments is, here's the net amount we pay out to everybody that includes everything.
Right.
But the gross is how much of it is actually salaries and wages, not taxes.
You are
Correct, so the difference would be different,
Right.
because we're,
There's separate line
the
items.
net
in
is our
budget.
budget,
Right.
correct?
The net, what we're charged every time there's a payroll is the net employee salary plus taxes.
Okay, so when we're making a budget, we are accounting for the net, meaning every single penny that needs to go out the door to the staff. The gross, though, if you're looking at an accounting perspective, is
Is-
just showing salaries and wages don't
Before
include
any
benefits
induction,
or
right.
any tax removal from that amount, so,
Correct.
okay.
Like our health insurance, we get back, I'm sure we have it on here somewhere, how much the employees pay in health insurance versus how much we pay. So we get 20% off the top of our cost of health insurance.
Okay, so if an employee, let's just make up a number, $5,000 a year for health insurance, let's just say that's what they pay, 20% of that comes back to the library.
Or is never taken away out of our budget.
Okay, so 80% of the health insurance is in the budget, 20% comes back to us, or is withheld for us, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, so now, oh, I'm sorry, Shannon and Megan had your hands up. Did you still have comments?
No.
And I'm sorry, because I'm looking completely opposite, I didn't realize your hands were up on top, so
I didn't
I'm
have
sorry
any
about that.
hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you did.
No,
Megan, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, it was like right at the same time, so you didn't do anything wrong. Okay, so last year we just never put your salary or ours in it as salary time. When we approved the budget last year, we didn't include your salary or ours. Is that correct?
That is correct, due to my error, if I heard you correctly.
So,
I don't think this is working well.
so did we pass a budget last year that wasn't accurately reflecting what we actually spent on payroll?
Correct.
Do you want one of these?
Do we have like a break? I don't know. I just like. Do we have like a breakdown showing what we had last year?
I could look it up, it was like 313,000,
Like the actual.
the actual net that we paid. Sorry, your mics should be on in a second.
Okay.
The computer signed up.
I was looking at the one last year. Yeah. Well, I mean, you said it, but it was 280,000.
Does that mean that last year we spent over what we brought in as well?
I want to be accurate with you. We overspent 10,000, well, $11,000.
11,000 last time, and then this time it's 24.
167. And I do feel like I remember us being over the 11
Looking at it right now.
last year, or it wasn't like a ginormous amount, but I also feel like at the same time, we were investigating, getting, Rose Township to pay their, their amended amount to be correct, so it was almost like,
Well, we upped
Oh.
Jessica's budget by 10 grand, so that would make sense for last year.
Yeah.
right, so I mean, it wasn't anything super,
It looks like last year we thought we had 50,000 extra, which
Right.
would make sense.
And
So
we
then-
ended up with a deficit ending 2 weeks ago, 10,000 or $11,000 on the total budget
for this year.
for the previous fiscal year, which ended June
Oh.
30th.
Okay. So the budget we approved with the errors last year left us with an $11,000 deficit for last year.
Okay.
But the budget that is being proposed with the corrections
Leaves us
leaves
with,
us with a next year 24,167. Am I understanding that correctly? This right here, we put budgeted amount, director board.
next year, we will have a surplus of $31,501.66.
Greg, can you please very specifically explain what is the number 24,167?
On page paid minus budget amount minus director minus board. So we paid in total $358,442 in wages, salary, board. We had budgeted, due to my error, only $280,000 for that.
So that's not the total deficit of the year, that is the deficit of just that category.
That is the deficit of the wages category. the
Okay,
702.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And my last question is, with this and being over or under 11, let's just say 11,000 for the sake of conversation, how then would we how would we end up with a surplus this year? Is that by doing the budget amendments and taking away the additional money we gave for programming? Like the adjustments that were made to compensate for this, is that how we would end up with a surplus?
In our grant, and under the grant total, we projected 18,000, but actually received 26,000.
Right.
So that would be a bonus of money.
And I moved, reduced cleaning to 2 times a month, which is about $3,620. Our reason we have more money is we earned more money. The penal fines are off.
Okay.
Rose Township has been our best friend, and they pushed up $2.
Right, for their thing.
Yep.
Okay. And then, Megan?
Okay, so we got an audit last year. How did they not catch that?
They did.
Can I speak to that?
When?
She's right.
I don't
Great,
know.
go ahead, answer
Finish
the question,
with
please.
Megan.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
talking.
All right, our audit last year showed a deficit.
Okay. Did we, and then we approved the budget stuff? Or was it after?
Audits are always after the budget, yeah. Our audit this year is November 5th,
So,
the first available date.
I don't know, am I just not remembering it? Am I forgetting it? Or did we not talk about it?
Well, pointing to my friend here, Mr. Mishler, he was the board representative when the budget, or when the audit was done.
Okay. Joe?
I guess I don't understand.
Okay, and I was at that audit thing, and the auditor said that there was a deficit, and I asked him about that. And I thought he said it's somewhere like about $80,000. But I don't know about that figure. And I said, how does this take care of itself? And he said, well, you'll fix it at the next, whatever we do, the next budget. And that was the last thing he said. He said, you will take care of it. But I didn't see an explanation of where it came from or anything like that. Because they were working on things that were way beyond my comprehension.
Kristen?
So I do recall, and Megan, I know why you're not remembering this, so the audit happened not at a meeting, it was a separate thing that was held during the middle of the day, and board members were allowed to attend,
Right.
and of course, most of us are working. I remember that Joe was able to attend that audit. So my question though is, if they found, are you saying that they found this specific error at the audit? Like where the money was, like this was missing off of the budget?
No, they would find that error in the upcoming audit.
Okay, oh, because they were doing the audit for last fiscal year, this
Yeah.
is this fiscal year. Okay,
Okay.
so that's what, so when the next audit happens, they would have seen where this happened.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, that's what I had.
okay.
Yeah, and that's why, I
It's
asked.
details, but it makes sense, so we can be on the right path, so,
But wait, so we had a deficit the year before then?
Mhm.
for 11,000.
Oh, okay, but we knew.
From
about
a
that.
line item, but not overall, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And that goes back to, excuse me if I spit out terms, without trying to make this muddier, running from on a fiscal year versus calendar year. We have, at the end of this, you'll notice we have the very last page. I have underneath net income $333,506. That's the money we have cash on hand plus this projected savings in the budget. So we get our money mostly in December. But we have to plan to pay everybody from January to December.
Gotcha. I remember that being part of that conversation
Yeah,
last
right.
year. Now, we still have, in addition to cash on hand, the money that was earmarked for strategic planning and improvements to the building in addition to this, correct? My last question is, and I'm sure we're probably gonna get there, is with this situation, there's a couple ways it can be resolved or fixed. Is that something that you have, like, do you have an idea of how you're, like, are you gonna share that with us on how to? But you're saying we're gonna have more money this year? So even with adding in the error, your salary, our salaries, whatever, we're going to be okay, like it's gonna balance and we're gonna have a surplus? And does that include still removing those enormous amounts of money from those departments that we gave them? Like, are we gonna be over because we're deducting money from
Can you
programming?
field this one?
Yeah.
Can we hear your proposed solutions, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
There are a variety of solutions that are possible. One is, say, okay, we were down $10,000 or $11,000 last year, we're just gonna eat that. Not my favorite solution. Another solution is reduce cleaning 2 times a month. Another solution would be to reduce hours of staff. If I reduce 2 hours, all staff, all non-salaried staff, 2 hours a week, total savings is $21,853. If I reduce all staff to 36 hours a week, that's $44,000 in savings.
And now, when we spoke previously, I thought that we needed to come up with a solution that came to around 31,000.
It may be, I was probably ballparking figures. I don't do great math in my head, but
Yeah, when we, originally looked at those documents at the last meeting, it was like a 50-something thousand difference, but we found a $20,000 typo right at the meeting.
Right.
So that brought us down to a $30,000 difference. So reducing the cleaning to 2 times a month saves us, you said like $3 grand a year?
I think so. I think I had that on here.
Yeah.
So our budgeting, what we actually budgeted for and what we paid out as far as like building cleaning, we budgeted 3,600, we paid out 62, so they're double the fee of what we budgeted. Have we thought about looking at another company?
62, yeah, what we actually paid.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's doubled what we budgeted. It may be worth shopping around.
Yeah.
And we did the same thing with the buildings and grounds, where it was a considerable amount of difference between what we budgeted and what we paid out.
Yeah.
So those might be something that we can contract with somebody else.
We can certainly look at that, yes, ma'am.
Cause if we can save, if they had originally, we came up with that $3,600 idea from somewhere and they doubled their price. And I understand everything's gone up, but without losing services, maybe there's somebody that's more comparable, that we could save money there.
Are we locked into a contract with either grounds or?
I
cleaning?
remember when we had this whole conversation, when we picked the company to do the grounds, again, like with landscape. But I also remember that the couple that does the cleaning here, like Fairy Tale, whatever they're called, I remember us having a whole meeting, like this came up in a meeting, like a year or two ago, and we were talking about that, and I think we based that budget off their quoted price at the time. But I do wanna bring up, cause Natalie mentioned to me after the last meeting, or maybe it was you, Shannon, I think it was Natalie though, about the walls and the bathroom, like basically bathrooms and kitchen are getting cleaned and we're paying.
The bathroom is not being
and it's not being clean, like, that's not my experience, since she's not here, I just wanna at least share that, so even if we were on point with that particular expenditure, if they're not living up to the quality of what we're already paying them, we should be looking elsewhere anyway. But,
I agree. Can we put, soliciting grounds and cleaning bids on, is that something that should go through next month's agenda, or can you just take a consensus of our?
I can take consensus, I will,
Okay.
I talked to them on Wednesday.
Okay, perfect. And then,
I have a.
so I wanna go back to this, I
want
wanna touch back on these numbers real quick before we get derailed.
Because I have
So we had a difference of 30-something that needs to be reconciled. And then you also mentioned 11,000 something. We could maybe eat it. What is 11,000? Can you be very specific about
Yes.
what that number represents?
11,000 represents what we actually lost. $10,929.
What we lost. What does what we lost mean?
We overpaid what we exceeded in what we'd earned.
From
So just on the
2023.
wage line or
No, that's the entire
overall on the
budget.
budget?
Overall on the budget.
And that's
Okay,
from 2023.
But in order to not, so that 11,000 reflects our loss on the entire budget. But the discrepancy on that line item was over $30,000. So we're not just trying to recover that 11,000 because we don't wanna pull the difference, the 20,000 from collections. It didn't sound like anyone on the board wanted that.
I
So
do have a
when you
question
come up with
about
these
collections.
potential solutions, we still need to focus on the $30,000 discrepancy, not 11,000. Is that correct?
It gets into the esoterics. From a budget standpoint, last year we lost $10,000. But on the wages and salaries, it was so grossly miscalculated that there was a $34,000 difference.
There is another problem here though, because we raised the budget for collections and that budget wasn't spent and it needs to be. This is
Right.
what we offer our community. 2 librarians said that, they asked you for their budget a few times, not their budget, but the remaining balance. And then it wasn't given to them until like the 3rd or 4th time they asked. One librarian said you never had any problems giving them their budget total or whatever, their balance. So we need to make sure that people know what their balances are, and I don't know the solution to that.
Okay.
But they need to be spending their money on their collections. So I still think the 30,000 isn't esoteric. I think it's very specifically collections was your proposed solution before to take from there. And I don't think that we need to take from there. We just added 10 grand to that, last year, right?
Wasn't even that long ago, was this year?
Not even, yeah, it was this year. So we wanna focus on building that collection still, so. All right, reducing cleaning for $3 grand a year,
I have some.
bringing staff down 2 or 4 hours is 21 or 44,000. Any other, possible proposed solutions, Mr. Director?
Yes, I would like to take a pay cut because it was my problem that put us in this mess.
Okay, I have an immediate comment on that for the board to consider. Mr. Hayes may retire at some point, and then if our budget says, this is what we're offering our director, it's going to limit us on master librarians who want to accept that position. So even though he's okay with it, I don't know that that's a sustainable or acceptable solution.
I think it's an admirable thing to put out there, but I don't think it makes sense to take a pay cut. These kind of things happen in every kind of budget, all the cost. It's a clerical error. Yes, we're looking at how to figure it out now, but it's not a pay cut.
Megan?
I mean, I don't know how we're supposed to fix it otherwise, but I don't really think it's fair to cut the staff down for
And-
something that they have no control over.
And Kristen?
So, I had done it the other day, but I had to redo it. I just wanna put this out there, I think that when we all got on this board, the last board, at the last meeting prior to this board taking office, I was at that meeting, they were looking to, increase to a living wage, we were all in support of that, we've given raises, we definitely, this consensus in this community is working here is a utopian job. It's one of the best paying, best hours, best environments to work in, and we have really good people that work here, and in this economy, taking away 36 hours to an hourly employee is $288 a month. That's a car payment, that's groceries for a week for some, that's band camp for the kids. That's the kind of thing that someone's gonna leave and find other employment elsewhere, especially when it was not they had no control over that. That is also going to create a conversation in this community by those people. I guarantee you, it's small town, someone's gonna talk about it to their friend at the coffee shop, they chopped their, it's gonna happen, it's Holly. So if you do it by 2 hours, that's still $144 a month, and I can tell you right now that if I lost $144 a month at my salary, it wouldn't kill me, but it would hurt things when you're living, 72% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. This is especially hourly employees. So I am in no way in favor of that. That's just me.
Shannon?
I don't think we take the money from anybody. The closest we're gonna get is to eating the 11 grand. But we can make it up by relooking at who we're contracting.
Yeah.
And any business situation, it's like, yeah, okay, we had a bad year fiscally, there's 11 grand deficit, we have to figure that out. It's gotta come from somewhere, we're gonna have to eat a part of it. I mean, we're not getting lost book material, or we're not collecting fines, we chose to eat those kind of costs. I'm cool with it, I think that's a service to the people around here, we're all good. But buildings and grounds, snow removal, our cleaning services, all of those things we can look at, rebudget, get lower bids on. We can look at materials. I mean, that's $8,500 wasn't spent on materials. Do we not need that? We increased it, but nobody spent it. So we could look at what our collection truly is. We can audit the collection. Where are our deficits and adjust it for this year? Like if we need New York Times bestsellers for the adults, then they're gonna have the budget this year, and maybe children's is just getting new releases or something. There's a way to offset what you're purchasing for this year to come up with some of that. I mean, it's $8,500 right there that we didn't spend, so we should be able to take it from that without affecting
But
employees or anybody.
was that not spent because they didn't spend it, or because they didn't know they had it to spend? And I think that's what the
Well,
question
I
was.
think
of
they
getting
all
that
come
budget.
to our meetings, so they are aware of what their budgets were. They were here when we set that budget for every
No, that's not
department.
what she means.
No.
No, but they
When they
know.
went to the director and said, how much do I have left?
Do they not keep track? When
And
I
that's-
go
that's the
into
question for the
something,
director.
they were here, they heard that you got $10,000 this year, you got three, whatever, you have a spreadsheet then, all right, this is what I've spent. I don't know what their processes are, as far as like knowing what you spent, what you didn't spend, where you're at. Some of that is, that's a professional job. You know where you're kinda at the ballpark of. So,
That's what I would prefer for each library manager, is to maintain their own budget as well.
absolutely.
But we also have to be careful not to step on toes when it comes to daily runnings, because we're board, not staff.
Right.
So as far as telling them to do that, that's up to the director. I have a really important question though. So we're still talking about the 30,000 total, but you're saying that the director and trustee wages weren't included on that line. So this isn't just a $30,000 difference anymore, this is an $80,000 difference, right? Because the director makes around 50 and paying out the trustees is what, 6 grand, maybe, something like that?
So are you
Get that.
you're talking budget or you're talking actuals?
At our last meeting on that line item for wages, and we overspent. And it said 30 grand. But you said your wage wasn't in there and neither was the trustees.
Right.
So it's actually an 80 grand difference that we overspent.
So, on page 4, our total wages paid, minus what we budgeted, minus director's salary, minus board, would be a deficit of $24,967.
Okay, I thought 358 is exactly what we had on that line item at the last meeting.
So according to this, what our actual gross income is and what our total expenses were, we're in the hole for $10,929.46. Is that all we're looking to make up?
2023.
Correct.
What
So that's
about-
all we're looking to make up.
Correct.
But we also have to vote to approve the
The
next
amend-
budget,
So
Right.
the
amended
next
budget for
budget
next
needs to
year.
reflect.
Needs to reflect not being in this hole, and I think that's where these numbers are getting confusing, it's, here's how much we were messing up on this line, here's how much we're messing up on this line, but when it's all comes out in the wash for 2023, we have to eat roughly 11 grand. But we have to make a budget so that we are not in this situation next year.
Correct.
Right, cause it sounds like we were in this situation already from the year, we had this mistake
Right.
happen twice in a row, but we didn't even know last time,
Right,
right? Okay.
right.
Joe?
So, I'm sorry.
I have a point of order and a comment. Should we raise our hands or we just jump in?
I've been calling on hands to the best of my ability, but go ahead.
Okay, I'm just curious as to how this works. But my comment is, I'm looking down this list. And I just saw it. Oh no. It escaped. You got line 815, whatever it is.
What page number are you on?
We don't have page numbers.
What's it look like, Joe?
I don't know, it starts
Show
at
us
the
your
top,
page.
803,
Cooperative
cooperative
membership.
membership. What are contractual services, which are $27,000? Which is, by large, the largest amount on here. And then we have, above that, contractual services. Well, no, that's the total of the above, is $727,102. I see what that is, but I don't know
So the
if we can take something from there or not.
I don't think we can get rid of the auditors, the security or the alarm.
I mean, we
copy
can
check.
find out if there's a cheaper
But-
service for
But
auditing.
didn't we, for auditors, I was gonna say, cause we literally just
The
approved
security
the
thing,
security
yeah.
thing like 2 months
Yeah,
ago.
Right. I think we're
Alright.
still on contract with them, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
And
that was
like
not an
rides,
option.
delivery, these are services taxpayers pay to make sure they have copy, fax, printer, rides, like, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
those are part, I mean, everything really is, but.
Yeah, I mean, we can rebid audit services, that's
Yeah.
not, I mean, that's something we can look for, that's just
We
a
could get rid of
responsible
that
thing.
aquarium, I'm just kidding, I'm kidding.
An aquarium's $2,000.
The children's librarian will bite you on that.
So that's another, point that I wanted to bring up when it comes to cutting employee hours. When you cut the library manager's hours, you're cutting into programming time. Because what programs are we gonna lose if they're not working those extra 2 to 4 hours a week?
Correct.
So that's our services still. So our managers specifically reflect our services. And I'm not saying that I'm in favor of cutting anyone's wages, but I think the most important 3 people to protect are the library managers, because those are
Right.
the services we offer to the
Right.
kids and the teens and the adults.
You are correct, yes, ma'am.
Joe?
I'm kind of confused, because I'm not a numbers guy by any stretch of anybody's imagination. What are we actually looking at? What is the actual number of what we have to deal with here? What is the number? Because I've heard several different numbers kicked around, and honestly, if you said this is the number,
There's 2 different numbers,
The number that we're in the hole is $10,000.
$929.46.
it's 10,000 from a previous year.
From this last year that we're
From
now.
23, 24.
23.
Okay, now, 24, 25. Is that what we're dealing with?
What is the amount, if we kept everything the same right now and didn't fix a single or adjust a single thing, is this the number we would be at this same time next year, or would it be more?
No, if we stick to this budget, we will have $30,000 surplus.
But does that include the cuts to the programming?
No, includes no cuts other than cleaning service.
So no hours removed, no budget cut for you, nothing. If we just keep operating as is with our current income, we will be over 30,000.
So when you say that everything stays the same, on the line item for collection, there wasn't a lot, there was only a certain amount spent, so would that mean that they can spend the same amount they spent last year, or they can spend the amount that they were actually budgeted for last year?
This is setting the budget at what they spent last year, plus a little.
So then.
So it is cutting.
So it is
the money
cutting,
we
it's cutting the raise that we gave to them for their collections,
Yes,
because they didn't spend it last year, so technically nothing changes, but it does, because we said, here, have more money, spend more money, and we didn't.
So if we give them that same raise, which was the tune of 20 grand for the whole thing, right? Wasn't it 20 grand, like, for combined for all three
Yeah, for all three,
departments?
yeah.
So if that's the case, we can still give them all that extra money and still have a $10,000 surplus? And if so, why aren't we doing that?
And Megan,
Looks like in the budget, they spent 21K, and the proposed is 30K.
30K, yeah.
So that includes the, what did
So
you say,
that's
8,500?
9,000.
Yeah,
Left
that was
over.
that difference.
So it is in the budget, right?
a small increase.
Okay.
But that was what wasn't spent.
And Shannon,
So that surplus is going to be the fact that Rose is paying us a more fair share of
And,
their.
yeah, and, penal fine increases.
Right,
so we're kind of relying on
which we should.
penal fines,
There,
we should
there
be
is
able
a
to.
way to cut some of this out of the budget to increase that. There just is. We went over on PR for youth materials, there's things that we can just be more stringent in next year's budget. Some of that, I would prefer book purchases over aquariums. I would prefer book purchases over some of this, like cleaning services, snow removal. I mean, we need snow removal, don't get me wrong, we want a safe parking lot, but those kind of things we can rebid, we should rebid all of this. I think that it's probably been a while since we've had a rebid on any of those services, and it's time to kind of throw in some competition. I think we can make up the 10 grand from that without having to take money from employees or adjust hours.
Joe?
I really am in disagreement on the aquarium. I'm sorry. I have been in here a lot, and every time I'm in here, I see little kids go up there and enjoying themselves, and parents going up there, and people, a librarian will come over and talk to them and talk about the fish. I just think it's a cool thing, even though it's noisy and.
I just wonder if we couldn't find something, I mean, that aquarium is how old? It's probably part of the cost is we're maintaining a very old piece of equipment. Could we have a different aquarium that is maybe less upkeep? Sure. Those kind of things could happen, that's an old
I
piece
have
of
no
equipment.
idea.
Kristen?
I just have one more question, and I think I'll have it fully in my head. If I understand what we just discussed, and I'm sorry to beat this dead horse, but I need it to stick. The extra money that we gave to the departments, and Natalie had said on multiple occasions, spend this money, like kept beating that drum, spend this money, I gave you the money, spend the money. Not all of it was spent, so this budget with a projected $30,000 surplus is based on what they did spend and not the overage we gave them that they didn't spend. But here's the question. If they had spent the money, if they had felt, and maybe they should keep their own things, that's y'all's business, but my point is, if they had spent all the money, we would not be at a $10,900 deficit. We would have been at a potentially 30,000, 20,000, like this would have been easily double. So my question is did they just run out of things to buy? Or was there pressure to not spend that money to try to repair this error? And not in a malicious way, but I'm just at like trying to move money around to make it not be so awful.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, if these three managers were given that same budget again this year, the increased budget that we approved, would they be like, yes, we need more stuff? Or do we feel like they don't need it? Like, do you know what I'm saying? So I'm trying, this number is true, but it's not 100% kind of true. Like, I feel like had they spent the budgets they were given, we would have been in a deeper hole for programming materials, etc. So.
And we'll find that, when we're audited, because
Okay.
at the end of the year, fiscal year, I encourage the managers to spend their money.
Like what was left.
Yeah, so when that all washes out, the auditors will come in and tell us.
Okay.
Pardon me, exactly. So they probably spend more than the numbers that I pulled here.
If the library managers are informed of their budget and not spending it, will it be reflected in their evaluations?
Yes.
Two-part question. If they're not informed of their budget, should that be reflected in your employee evaluation?
Yes.
And did you get copies of those for the board? Perfect, we can go to that later. And last question. If these things are not reflected in the employee evals, should that be reflected in the board's evaluation of the director for being able to handle conflict and disciplinary actions with employees?
When you say these things, was that a repeat of your first question?
Sorry, yes. Yeah, so going back to my first question.
Yes,
if,
absolutely.
If a library manager was informed of their budget and they did not spend it, and you do not reflect that in their employee evals, then the board should comment on that in their director evaluation.
Yes.
So that means that the board needs access to the employee evaluations. And I don't think that those should be shared with the public because they're the employees, they're the staff.
Right.
So I'm not certain of the process for that. And we don't have to talk about all of those details today. Maybe that's something you and I can get together on.
Yeah, as we spoke of earlier, I was hesitant to email you contents of the evaluation.
Yeah, I agree, because we don't want to share
I
It'd
their,
be foible.
they're not elected officials, they still have some anonymity unlike us. Joe?
You could have managers who look at this differently than what you're all looking at it. You're looking at, I didn't spend all the money as a bad thing. There is the possibility that you might have a manager who said, I'm really economical, and I'm going to save money, but I'm still gonna get a lot of material. Now, that's a very positive point of view. Do they spend their budget? No. Should that be a reflection of negativity, or should somebody find out what was their thinking on this? Because I know people who are very, I don't have another word, very economical. They're gonna spend, and they're gonna get it as cheap as they can get it, wherever they can get it, and they might not spend all of their budget because they already got more than whatever they had to begin with, because they were economical and they did all of this cost saving and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm just wondering if that should be considered, because is that a negative? Or is that a positive, that somebody was economical and that they went out and did all this cost saving? I'm kind of curious about that, because if I got that in my evaluation, I didn't spend my budget, but I had done all this other stuff, you'd have a war. And you wouldn't like it, because I would have felt that, I'm doing a good thing, only to be slapped around in an evaluation. I'm just kind of curious about, I'm not saying that's how we're doing that, but I'm just saying it's another way to look at it.
Megan?
From my understanding, we already discussed it, the staff wanted their remaining amount, and they didn't get it. And then somebody said that they should keep track of their own, and we said that was daily runnings, right? We can move
also just from the way that we have all the bills presented to us, did not see anything like thrift books or any of those kind of, sites where people are buying used books or material at a discount. We were purchasing from the same companies throughout the year, so I don't necessarily know that we were doing it that way. And I think that the age of our collection probably needs an audit, because there's no way that we don't need different materials here. So
Yeah.
as stewards of the library, we should be encouraging updated materials to be purchased.
Agreed, I think it's a context question. If our budget was on, just items that were going to stay here for 10 years, and they were able to buy things cheap and sit on some money and create a little nest egg, that'd be great. But if the point is to build the collection to make it larger for the community, then sitting on your budget and collecting a nest egg isn't the solution. Okay, I think I've got a pretty good grip on what's going on here.
And I would ask, Madam President,
Yes,
I would ask the board for 2 motions to be in compliance with the
and we
audit.
cannot make motions here, correct?
No.
It's got, okay, just checking.
Yeah, this will be
For the July meeting.
for the
Yeah.
July meeting, to accept the amended budget as presented and to accept the 24-25 budget as presented.
And to accept the what?
24-25 budget as presented.
Kristen, you have a question?
But that amendment does not include the increased amounts that we originally gave them to spend on their collections.
The amended budget would be the first column, or actuals.
I'm so, my brain is so
I know
overwhelmed
numbers
with
here.
numbers. What I'm asking is the money that we gave them last year that they didn't spend, you said earlier, the budget that gives us a $30,000 surplus next year is removing those additional funds that we gave them because they didn't spend them.
It's giving them, what was it, a $9,000 increase?
That's 30,000 total.
Total, but
Yeah.
my point is, are you asking us to approve that amended budget, or are you asking us, will it be amended again to increase their amounts for this year? In the budget you're asking us to approve with that surplus, I'm just asking.
Okay, I think I understand
You
your question.
understand?
It gets so,
Are you asking us to approve this budget with a $30,000 surplus, or with a potentially $10,000 surplus, or 15, and increasing those manager budgets back to where we had approved them before?
I would be asking for either of those. I just
Okay.
want an
Okay.
approved budget.
Okay,
I think it's safe to say we know our penal fines are gonna go up, because we know the girls went up, everything else will go up with Springfield and whatnot, as populations raise. I'd like to see the collections be added to. I'd love to not have to see anyone's hours cut. There was one more question, and this might take a minute. I see your hands, just so you know,
Nope, yeah,
Shannon.
I know.
Is it possible for the 2 most recent employees that were brought, well, one was hired and then one was brought up to full-time? Is there a possibility to offer, if you were to consider putting them down to a lower part-time, offer them benefits where they do like a pay into it?
The board approved health benefits for anyone over 32 hours a week.
For 32 hours a week. So if you were to cut employee hours, you could potentially cut the 2 of them down to 32, and they can retain their benefits and not cut the hours of anyone else, maybe?
We can do any of those things. That's within your power.
I don't think it's within our power to make that specific decision. Shannon?
In my experience, to increase a position or to have a new one, that should have been something brought to the board. That, because that's a budgeted issue. It's not, so we vote to make a part-time person full-time, that would have impacted this budget. And that should have been something brought to the board, in my opinion. That's how we do it as a
something
school
I asked.
district. And
That's something I
everything
asked,
else.
to the best of my memory, the person that was hired new, that was brought to the board and I, to the best of my memory, and we all voted yes to that. And something I pointed out is that when the board votes yes to those things, there is an assumption that someone's looking into the budget to make sure that that's budgeted for. The person that was brought from part-time to full-time, I don't remember if that came to the board.
I rely on my board member.
Wait, me? Why? I don't remember.
Right.
I have menopause brain. No, I don't think that it was, and I remember Adrian being brought up.
Let's not use names.
I'm sorry. Okay. I recall the most recent employee being brought up simply because I remember a previous employee retired.
Yeah.
So in my head, when that was brought up, it was almost like a replacement
Like a
of
wash
wages.
for the budget.
I was unaware that a second employee was brought up to full-time until this whole story came out, because it's not that I'm uninvolved, it's not daily runnings, it's not my business to
Right.
micromanage and babysit, your job, in that way. But I do think that if it's not board required, my suggestion to Madam President upon initial look at this is, I believe that if anyone is going to be hired, fired, whatever, and go on, or if you're gonna add an expenditure to the budget, I think not just you, any director moving forward should have to at least consult with the treasurer to make sure, like, there's another set of eyes, like, can we pay for this, because at this point, it wasn't even I don't believe in any way any of this was done intentionally or maliciously, but the other question is do we need those two full-time employees? Like, technically, like, are you auditing when you do reviews of actual work performance and what people are doing with their time? Are we being good stewards of our budget? Are we giving people more hours because they're awesome, or are we doing it because we actually need it in the library? Because that is the professional question to ask, is do we actually need that part-time person full-time? That's you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, because we wouldn't have been involved in that decision, but I definitely think anything that's gonna impact the budget, especially with benefits, and we're talking salaries, we're not talking about a one-time expenditure, should have to at least have something where there's a.
And Shannon, to reply a little more to your last question, I know that any expense that the director wants to do that's over $5,000 has to come before the board. So when it comes to the question of hiring employees or bringing them from part-time to full-time, being that amount of money is spread over the year, I don't think that question is fully answered in that way. But because of the impact on the budget, I do think it would be due diligence to make sure
So in my
the treasurer is
experience,
brought in.
in my experience, those are voted on changes. The changing of personnel, creating positions, changing positions from full-time and part-time have been, in other areas, voted on by their boards. It was something that is approved as a board thing and not considered daily runnings.
Okay. And, I think Megan, you had your hand up, and then Joe. Okay. Joe?
I agree with Shannon. I think it should be board decisions. But in all the years I was involved in union stuff, if it was hiring, any of that kind of stuff, the immediate manager, the principal, could recommend that I get rid of you, or recommend that I promote you or something. But the decision had to be made by the board itself, because it was a fiduciary thing, it was a financial issue, because if you get rid of somebody, now you're doing something else. If you're hiring somebody new, now you're adding money to the budget. So that should be done. And perhaps we should make an amendment to, we can't do that here, make an amendment to the bylaws of the library to the effect that any hiring, firing, however that works out, has to come before, has to come before the board of directors,
Yeah.
or come before the library board.
And that protects the director from being also the person who is now all of a sudden giving, not you, Greg, but
Right.
in general,
Any
like,
director.
okay, I'm giving more hours to my friend, or now we're not friends, so your job is not here. That protects the director from those kind of things.
And I think that could be a simple fix, you know, near the area where it says has to bring questions of over $5,000 to the board, including hiring and firing. Kristen?
Well, to expand maybe on what you just said, it also helps, not only, it's not so much protect just you, again, you are director now, it's director in future, and future preservation of the library and institution. It also prevents, if a board misses this type of mistake or this error, it's not one person who is, it's a board that should have, that's 8 set of eyes that should have caught something.
Yep.
And so I think it's just a really good cushion for everything. It's a good check and balance. My second thing is, I just have one more point. I agree with the hiring because of the amount of money. I am curious though is if we are overstepping in the firing, because that does, it is fiduciary, but not in the same way. And I think that also red tapes anyone in a managerial role from truly exercising the authority with which that job has been earned.
I can see your argument.
And so what I do believe though is a courtesy, is that if any director was ever considering reducing someone's hours due to no need, whether it's behavioral or conduct and review, whatever it is, to release someone, I think because we are a community institution where everybody talks and hears and people come in here and they're like, oh, where'd so-and-so go? It creates a conversation. I think no different than like the council when they were on the news for something that had to do with the police. Nobody knew. So I think that if someone's gonna be let go or reduced in any way that might be deemed controversial, not a retirement, I'm talking a let go, I think the board should at least be notified that that is the intent so that we are prepared should any emails, calls, conversations, you know, so we're all on the same page. But as far as like, I don't think a director needs our permission to let somebody go, technically. Then we have money in the budget, well then we have to hear from them again on who they wanna hire. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like that money spending part matters, the money not spending part would just be a professional courtesy. That's just my opinion.
I think we should get attorney input on that, and that might be a context question for firing too. Joe?
Kind of an overview. This is not the old days in the library where everybody was buddy-buddy. Kinda hate to say that, but everybody was buddy-buddy. And, you know, people have been here a long time and they were friends. It was sort of run kinda casually. I think we've moved way beyond those days. This is a professionally run library. And I'm in sort of, I don't know if I agree or disagree with you on this. I'd like to hear what the attorney says, but I think that we need to begin to reflect that we're running a professional library. That we, in order to keep up the image that we have, we need to pay attention to that professional thing so we can keep the system working. And I don't know, I'd love to hear what the attorney says on this.
Yeah, because I imagine that there might be occasions, you know, I don't know, if one employee struck another, if one employee struck a patron, would they need to be fired on the spot?
No,
There's no
that's
time
what
for
I'm
the
saying,
director
like,
to
shoot
come
an
and
email
ask.
after it's over, you
Right,
know,
right.
But again, that's why we're having this meeting. This meeting, in the good old days, might not have ever happened. It would have been like, oh, let's move some numbers around, let's fix it, Band-Aid it, and get on with life.
On the other hand,
The devil's in the details.
if there's a controversial fire, it might be nice for the director to have the board's backing as well. There might be things that are, I don't know, I'm just not sure. I'd like employee attorney input on that as well. And yeah, I think it is good for the director to have the backing of the board when it comes to things that are hefty, even if they're spread out through the year, such as hiring. The
Yep.
board to have your back.
And if I may, Madam President,
Yeah,
I think that this last item addresses a lot of the concerns that the board has government entities do have finance committees.
Yeah.
And this, as we all see, numbers can be very tough to work with. And if we have a finance committee that is active and looks at every quarter, it balances every quarter and looks at every expenditure. I put it over $1,000 instead of $5,000. Very rarely have I had to spend $5,000 on the only time might be furnace breaks down or something like that. You know, that's a quick phone call to the finance committee.
I agree with you on the finance committee. Everybody has them. I know the village council does. I know that, I think the township board does. Maybe. But you know, the county does, and some of the other places around here have them. Every community I know around here has finance committees, so I think that's a good idea.
I have a question. I agree with this. Would it help with the finance committee and with budgeting if there is a change in employee, like the managers of each department, if there is a change in their job description to have them manage their budget with you as the overseer? Would that be something that would be, you know, an easier fix to say, children's gets $5,000, it is up to the children's librarian to maintain the records of that $5,000, and then you are able to, okay, yep, I approve, this is what it looks like, finance committee, how does that look?
I think that's an excellent idea.
I do think that that is absolutely within the realm of the manager's position of those departments.
Yeah, they are professionals, yeah.
Joe?
When you do the monthly board packets and we get all that financial information, I don't see the money that's being spent divided up into specific categories. I know it'll say books. Okay, what does that mean? I mean, is it children's books? Is it is it teenagers? Is it adults? What is it? Now, there's other categories.
Right.
But I'm saying it might be more beneficial to us as a board member, and maybe to the other people, that we put these in different categories. Okay, how much did you spend today? I spent $250. Here's the receipt. Okay, so tomorrow you spent $300. Okay, so by the end of the week you spent, let's say, 900 and something. But we know that 900 came from this category. And now we can go to the adults, how much was spent here. I think, I'm not an accountant by any stretches of anybody's imagination, but it would just be helpful to me as a board member to be able to see where this, whatever it is, divides out.
Okay, Crystal?
Just to wrap what you just said, what he's adding, maybe a good suggestion is if if you chose to implement what Shannon just recommended, which is managers have control of their own budget and they have to account for that, they're also responsible for that, you know, so now that's on them, but maybe instead of a monthly breakdown in our, board packet, if they're turning in and having those things approved quarterly to have the finance committee review, maybe we should be getting that summary of each department quarterly with our board packet, and we can see a bigger picture, not just a month to month, and go, okay, adults, this is a great way to know where the need is to spend the money to make the budget for next year.
Yeah.
And we are aware of it, so maybe a quarterly report of expenditures per department for the board, just for our own knowledge.
Good idea.
I like the idea of that being built into the financial committee's responsibility to report to the board. And Shannon?
I was just gonna say that can be the financial committee's report every quarter, because we do need to have the monthly statements, because those are bills to pay that we vote to pay. So we would need to still have that information, and then quarterly they can come and tell us, like, all right, children spent this amount, teens are here, adults are here.
All right, we have some pragmatics to tend to. There's several solutions. I just kind of did some quick numbers. Are the two newest people, are they currently doing 40 hours?
Varies by week.
But around there.
Yeah.
So if they were brought down to 32 and you keep their benefits, that's 16 hours a week at $18 an hour,
Yes.
and that is $15,000 a year,
Yes.
as opposed to all of the employees losing 2 to 4 hours. So that's
Yes.
just one of the solutions. One of your solutions was all the employees lose 2 to 4 hours. One of your solutions was just the cleaning. One of your solutions was eat the money and do nothing. I don't know that the board has the right to pick the solution for you, because that's daily runnings. So I think that you have to offer it to the board, and then the board has to vote.
Without, without thinking about it, which I will do, my solution would be to eat the $10,000.
Megan?
I'm still not sure. I'm like, I don't understand what I'm looking at. So I'm looking at our previous budget that we looked at in April of this year. We had like the proposed budget that we talked about.
Of 23 or 22?
No, this year. In April, we talked about it.
Oh, yes,
So I'm looking at what you sent us before that meeting.
it's been revised a lot since then.
But this was, like, where did our electronics go? We had $10,000 for that, and now there's nothing.
You mean budgeted, we had $10,000 for electronics?
Yeah.
I think I
Now it's just not there.
dropped all that out.
Did we do that in the meeting? Electronic resources, $10,000. There's not even a line item.
I can't hear what you're saying.
She's talking about $10,000.
Yeah, electronic resources and materials, we had $10,000. And like, yeah, we might have changed it little bit, but I don't think we would have eliminated it completely.
Was that the cameras?
No, it's just the budget for
Yeah.
anything electronic, computers, whatever.
I think that's materials only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 740, it's just, there's nothing. I don't know, it's just like not lining up for me, something feels wrong, and it's bugging me. I don't think I'm not like accusing anyone, I just think something feels messed up still.
Okay, you're under library materials, 740.
Yeah, and we like literally just talked about this in April.
And I see 744, 45, 46, and 48.
Yep, and it was previously 747, which is gone, there's nothing there. And you can see it goes from 746 to 748.
When I first looked at that, I'm going from memory here, so I'll have to go back to my notes. We were concerned about the inavailability of ebooks. We thought we needed more ebooks. But now we're in partnership with about 5 or 6 different consortiums. I don't know if we really need an increase in ebooks.
Yeah, but we eliminated it altogether. Like, we don't need any.
We'll still get ebooks as part of our
Consortium?
consortium that we pay for.
I have informal notes, and I said that we were gonna change the continuing education to 2,500 instead of 1,000. I didn't say anything about an electronic. I don't even see that in here. Where's that at?
I have no clue.
And electronics, are you talking about, he's saying ebooks, but are you talking about electronics
Well,
as
this
in?
library materials.
Oh, okay. So are you talking about, I was thinking computers, laptops, electronics. And we usually get grants for that.
Right.
You know, but we still had it in the budget in case we didn't get a grant.
Right, that's a line item in here.
Did it get combined with something else?
No, I think the answer to ebooks is, we pay through our consortium. And now that our consortium is a member of 5 or 6 different other consortiums, I don't think we really need to pay a lot for ebooks.
Yeah, but what happens to that $10,000?
And where's the continuing education? Is that in here? I might be missing it, but I don't see it.
Yeah,
we
probably.
had that, we wanted to move that to 2,500. So like, we have a lot of, money that we put into the budget. Like, we're trying to eliminate money, but like, there's money missing that we needed in there also.
Well, and that kind of goes back to my question earlier, which is, when this was figured out that we were gonna be in the hole, were things getting chopped to compensate for this error? Because if that was the case, I think that was the thing, and I do wanna be clear, I will reiterate what Megan just said, I don't think anyone is saying like anything was intentional, malicious, mistakes happen, they do. But the question is if the auditor found this discrepancy whenever that happened, I'm not real sure why that wasn't brought up at at that time. And the second thing is now we're missing some things, and I feel like maybe what you're feeling, Megan, I don't know, I won't speak for you, is I think the numbers we're reading and what you're presenting and these solutions are correct or accurate to consider. I think what feels like, I'm a little paranoid too that we're missing something again. Something that didn't get included last time and that messed up the numbers, like, and maybe, like, her attention to detail, because she's keeping those notes all the time, like, she'll remember things I won't remember from writing them down. So, if we're missing 2 line items that we normally budget for completely, even at the proposed budget amendments you're giving us, instead of a $30,000 surplus, maybe it's only a $25,000 surplus, or that's $20,000, you know what I'm saying, like, I feel like the question is are is something accidentally missing?
Missing from here.
So that we're like, oh, we have $30,000, and then next year at this time, we're like, why are we $30,000 in the hole? How did this happen?
What program is this coming from? Like this spreadsheet?
QuickBooks.
So this is coming straight from QuickBooks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Megan?
Cause there's just like a lot of little things, like this one, so the same where the salaries are the 700,
Uh-huh.
like there's just doubled numbers in a couple places. It's just very confusing, I don't know what I'm looking at, I feel frustrated because I feel confused, and I think we've had like so many different ones, and they all have little mistakes, and Greg, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to like
No, I
not
completely
trying
understand.
to like be mean, but I don't feel like I can do my job properly because I don't really know what I'm looking at.
And I feel exactly the same way you do sometimes with all this.
Okay, let me ask a question. Who's creating this?
This that you're looking at is done by, Michelle will enter the numbers, I will enter the deposits, and Stearns and Foster, Haven Group will go over the books and do the reconciliation. So the final look is on Haven.
And like, even like in April, we got like a really like nice detailed like presentation almost, and this is like very jumbled and confusing.
April was probably the presentation one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
proposed. Yeah. I was just trying to like look and see like what it compared to, because I do remember upping things, but we didn't like. I don't remember.
And I think it's
eliminating
very
one.
difficult because the way I do math on a piece of paper is not how accountants put math in a computer. It doesn't even make sense to me either, but like I have to give it 20 times extra looks because of just the way they do things, so.
Megan, what could potentially happen to make you feel you've got the information in front of you that you need to make a decision at the next meeting?
I feel like I think Natalie asked for someone to come here and explain it to us, and I was kind of expecting that because we talked about it at the last meeting, we talked about it in the emails, and there's nobody here that like knows what's going on to explain it to us.
So the numbers from April, from the proposed budget, the original total expenses were $442,715. That was not including staff salaries. When we take that and then we add that in, that's $388,251, which is what our staff salaries were, $380, and then that accurately reflects the $8,000 that we are missing or in the hole on. So the numbers, at least on that part, seem to add up, but I don't know, like, some of these categories are not what we were proposing.
Well, yeah, it's missing things. But that could, like, it's missing things. Like, it makes sense, but then it's missing. So it doesn't make sense at all.
So, Greg, I know that you mentioned some particular reason that had to do with conflict of interest. The auditors could not be here. I can't remember your precise words.
The auditors cannot talk to us before a budget is closed.
But the accountant could, right?
The accountant could, but they're gonna come in, and say, these are the numbers that we were given. We have reconciled to here. I don't think they'll give you any better explanation. I mean, I can call them and ask them to come. But I don't think you're gonna get a whole lot more different clarity from what you have in front of you.
We did ask for an expert to be here, so the board did already ask for that, and I understand, the conflict of interest for the auditor. So can you have an accountant at our next meeting, just so we can ask them questions?
I can have a representative from the Haven Group at our next meeting.
Haven Group, okay, and, sorry, what's Haven Group to us again, please?
They do our payroll and they do our reconciliations.
Okay. So will they be able to answer all budget questions or just the ones about payroll?
I don't think they'll be able to answer any budget questions.
And what do we pay them for? Like, how do we get an accountant to explain accounting to us?
That's
Like,
a whole
seriously,
different
we pay them a
expense.
lot of money and we can't get an answer on, I mean, we're not asking for a full college course here. It's
No.
just simply to go, okay, hey, yeah, we gave you these numbers, but you're a frickin' accountant. You get paid 6 figures to make this make sense to your clients. And I don't think we're asking for much. I don't. And if they refuse to answer questions, maybe we need to bid out a new accounting firm.
Oh, I think they'll answer questions, but they're not gonna answer questions about.
They're just our payroll, they don't have anything to do with everything
So
else
who,
that's
do
on
we have a
here.
CPA? Who does our taxes?
Our filed taxes.
Or like, yeah, or like our,
Cause we don't pay taxes.
Well-
Taxes.
so we have someone who manages payroll, and we have an auditor, but
Right.
we don't have a CPA to oversee a $500,000 budget, like to make sure that this is right. Why?
Just remember, it's only recently become $500,000. When we started here a few years ago, it was 400,000, and before us, it was
300,000.
300,000.
Even that, it's taxpayer money. I don't understand how every, the village and the township all have CPAs that they can call. Why are we, I mean, maybe we just need to get up to speed like we did on
Yeah,
having an
everything else,
attorney. I'm
yeah.
not getting, I'm sorry to sound bitter, I'm just like, how's this possible?
Like, it's just, yeah.
This
we're
is a
just
lot
now
of
at the point
money
where we
and it's
can-
not earned money, it is taxpayer money.
Taxpayer money.
So there needs to be a professional person that can walk in this room and explain to a treasurer, because thank God Natalie has a background, at least she's not an accountant. But what happens if you have a whole new board in 10 years and everybody's just like, you know,
I mean,
dazed and confused?
I have a purchasing background.
Joe, go ahead.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I know, okay.
Joe, you have the floor.
This is exactly what I said about 20 minutes ago. And you're correct. We're a professional operation. Now, we need to move to that level. We're acting like we're at it, but the level is up here a little bit farther with a CPA or whatever. And an accountant. I'm with all of you. The accountant should be able to come here and tell me something, because I don't know.
Mm.
I count on them. And if this is crap they put out, okay, I'm not sure I wanna hire them again, in all honesty, but the CPA thing, I agree with you. Everybody else has them. They have them for a reason.
If we're looking at putting a millage to double this budget, we better have somebody with a degree that knows how to look at one
I
and
mean,
find
maybe,
errors.
maybe that wasn't important several years ago with the other boards, maybe they felt they had a handle on it, I don't think so, but.
Megan,
I can't even go back to the meeting to watch it. It's only until February on the website.
oh, Greg,
Yeah,
when will
Greg's
you be,
working on
Mr.
that.
Director, when will you be getting the other meetings up on the website?
Probably Saturday.
Okay, I'll make a note of that, and Shannon?
To hire a CPA, then we're going to have to cut more from the budget, so just be prepared for the next meeting,
Yeah.
because if it's gonna be a $6,000-7,000 figure that is coming out of programming or something, or an employee's wages.
Or this $30,000 supposed surplus we're supposed to have.
I don't see a $30,000
Okay.
surplus.
I would love to have a CPA. I am not an accountant.
Agreed, I don't think it's a bad idea,
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's a hard one that
And
we
that's
all
why I
have to
wanna-
be prepared to.
Excuse me, a finance
Yes.
committee is, I wanna share this burden.
I don't think
But
it's a
you
bad
mean-
idea, I think it's a good idea
Yeah.
to have one, but it's going to be something that we don't just pull the money out of our hats, it's gotta come from
Right,
this.
but.
How many hours would we need a CPA to work for? Obviously, we're not hiring an employee, it's gonna be a contractor.
I am not qualified to answer that.
Fair.
I only have one point on that, and that is that, because again,
Yeah.
I need the numbers to make sense in my head, I'm not just throwing around $30,000 figures, that was something you said earlier, and I asked, so if we do not increase, if we do not replicate the increase we already voted on to these programs, and we just leave it at what they spent, which is one of the options, you said, either or, to be voted on. If we left it as is, and left, you're saying the proposed budget for next year that you're asking us to vote on, as is, would leave us with a $30,000 surplus at this time next year, isn't, that's what you said, right? So if that were the case, then we would have money to contract a CPA. But that also is again not giving that increase to programming. If we gave the increase to programming and got a CPA, we would break even. That's the way I look at it.
I think something's wrong, because we had $10,000 for electronics in the budget last year, and it's not on here for last year either. I don't get it.
And if we're eating the 11 grand, that's coming out of that $30,000 surplus.
Well, I was about to
so
ask, what does eat it mean? Where does that money come from?
I know one person who's an accountant, not sure if CPA or not, but I'll get you their number.
So maybe, I would be interested, now I just have a question, last question of mine for the night. If we go to the next meeting and we are presented with, might sound crazy, could we see two budgets? Could we see a proposed budget, one with the increase that we voted on previously, one without, in simple terms, with electronics and whatever's missing, added and corrected, ongoing education and what else?
Continuing education.
Continuing education?
I mean, that was me quickly looking.
No,
for
but
it.
I'm
I
just
don't
saying,
know.
like, really
I
to
have
go back and with a fine tooth comb, pull that budget from April and this one and make a comparison and see where the deficits are, give us two proposed options. My thought is even if we went with an option without the increase for right now, I would be interested in seeing where the auditor comes back with this audit before even moving forward with anything else. Like, I wanna make sure that what we're being proposed and we voted on is great, but if an auditor comes back and says, hey, there's even more stuff missing or messed up, maybe we have that 30,000 as a cushion to now compensate for things that got missed after the audit. We can still vote to increase programming spending again if we need to, but maybe it's sitting there until after the audit. That's just my suggestion, that's all it is.
Are you saying ratify the budget after the audit?
Okay, Shannon?
I just have a question, so going into this, are we looking at putting to bed this one with the $11,000 that were in the hole? We wanna go in, put that one to bed and start fresh on the next year, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. So when we come into this next budget hearing, I like Kristen's idea of having the two proposed budgets. I think we'll have to make a vote on what we're doing with that $11,000. And then we need to go forward with what we think is going to be our actual budget, and we can have that listed, like what those proposed budgets are. That's what we're gonna have to do. It's gonna have to, cause we have to vote on one in July, right? That is our job, has to be, have to have a vote on a budget at the end of July. Can we amend that after, pending what a CPA says to us?
You can amend anytime.
Okay.
Then
anytime.
that's
Okay.
what we got.
Very good.
Okay,
So,
Very good.
thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Two budgets. You wanna see two budgets.
Mhm.
Budget one will be as presented here.
And then one with the increase to what they actually spent in programming or in book materials, it's not even programming.
Yeah, book materials.
Because they didn't spend $8,500, I wanna see if we give them back that $30,000 for materials. And then also the 21,000, which is what they did spend.
But that would, I think, also to that point, is so a budget with the increase, a budget without the increase in the actual that was spent. But also comparing it from April's to now to find these missing items to make sure that they shouldn't have been in here tonight.
Yeah, missing line items. need to
Missing
be
line
addressed.
items, and then the question is, what at the end of the day would these budget, and then you're gonna have to subtract, if we're eating it, you're gonna have to subtract that 11,000 out of the 30,000 supposed surplus that may not be 30,000 after
Or
you
it's
brew,
coming
whatever
from
it
That
is.
would be
Savings.
previous year, so
Yeah.
we've already paid it. I mean, we've already eaten that.
That's coming from savings.
Oh, okay, so two proposed budgets, one with all the line items and increase, and one without, with a cushion to amend later, potentially.
And then I can only imagine what a headache this is for you to have to explain these things to people, some of us that don't get it at all. I'm talking about myself here.
Well, hopefully
So,
I haven't been
please,
belligerent. I mean,
whether it's, David Dill that I'm asking you to reach out to, and I'll get you his number, or someone else, to please have someone here that we can ask, so they can talk to us like a kindergarten class. And they don't have a personal take on it, and they won't be offended, because they'll know that we're just asking how to make things make sense. Joe?
Okay, I would be the first to admit I'm ignorant on this, but when you said there was $10,000 in this, whatever it was, electronic thing, I'm thinking to myself, there's still $10,000, because wasn't it budgeted?
But it's not anymore, because there's no line item here.
You're saying there's missing,
What was spent?
We don't know.
that's
Well,
why we want out.
this is proposed, this is on the proposed budget,
Okay,
so it hasn't been spent yet. That is
So
from
can we
the
take it out?
proposed budget. Maybe we
But
don't
it
need
was
to,
also
but,
in 2022. I just don't know that we discussed removing it. I'm finding more things. I'll like find everything and come back with my report.
Yeah, and if you want to, what's the word I'm looking for, crunch, if all these line items aren't necessary because they're basically synonyms or something, is that what's going on?
right.
Like our electronics falling under tech, that kind of
Okay.
thing?
So I did find the continuing education, but then there's another line removed,
Okay.
and it's not it's $500.
Okay.
So under grants, at the very top, there's grants, other. That one is on the previous budget, okay, 2022. I'm looking at 2022 from the website. But there was a co-op continuing education grant for 500, and I remember that and I wrote it in my notes from the meeting, that we wanted to move it to 2,500, and that's just completely not in here, and you can see, again, 450.001, 450.003, it skips two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that a couple places myself, under audit services, under contractual services, 815.
And I just
001,
caught this,
and then it moves up to 3, we skip over 2. So I don't know what .002 was.
It was co-op continuing education.
Oh, that's the continuing education, okay.
It's on the 2022.
Which I don't think they
official
offer anymore.
budget.
They don't offer anymore, okay.
But we still had it in our notes that we wanted to put that in the budget.
Yeah, so if that's accounted for somewhere else, that's fine,
I don't see it.
but we need to know where it's at. Joe?
This goes back again to what I said earlier, we need to provide our people with the right kind of tools
Mm-hmm.
to do this. I don't know what that means. I mean, a CPA, yes, but
An accounting degree.
then
I mean,
how
we
much money
should-
are we
It's
talking?
cheaper to just contract an accountant.
I mean,
To get
we
away.
need to spend the $500 to send Greg to a QuickBooks class, because we're asking you to be proficient in this, and we're not giving you the continued education to
Yeah.
do it. And that is in the budget, and you should take that opportunity.
Thank
Because
you.
we should pay for that.
Question for the board, is an accountant okay, or is a CPA required?
I'd say CPA.
Yeah, well, CPA.
One works with taxes and
Yeah,
one works,
an
I think
accountant.
we're fine on the taxes part of it.
Yeah, I think it's more of an accountant, so
Okay.
accounting services,
More accountant?
Yeah,
like an accountant, like a licensed accountant.
Okay. So accountant is preferred.
Yeah, CPA is for taxes, sorry. Just used to saying.
Okay, so that's the general vibe of the board. We'd like an accountant present at the next meeting. I don't remember which person is that I gave you the name of.
Megan, do you feel comfortable, as, I mean, you'd have to do it on your own time and you're finding these things. If you're gonna make two proposed budgets or, you know, different versions for us to do that, we can't always amend later, but is this, do you feel like the things that, the discrepancies that you're finding in the computer notes right here is something that could be condensed into a singular email so that,
I can do that, I don't know how accurate it is.
or even just the things you're noticing though, because then if you're going to prepare two proposed budgets, I'd like to see, you know, some of these missing things either explained, accounted for, or why we're not having them in, why we're adding them in, they're in one budget, not the other, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cause if we go, hey, here's two great budgets, and then we're like, oh, there's 30 grand more worth of stuff that we're missing, like, I'd like to have that information before the budgets, before you spend your time to make one.
well, yeah,
Okay,
You know.
may I make a suggestion? That she send the initial email to Greg and let Greg send it out.
What email? To who? What?
She creates an email with all these, whatever they are. She should send it to Greg, and let Greg send it out to us. I don't think you wanna train.
I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on.
Well, she said, why don't you put this in an email? All
What
the-
an
Wants me to
email.
send
all
it
the
to
things
Greg
that she's
first.
finding.
I agree with Joe. I
Yeah,
think that's
that's
something
fine.
that
I can
goes to
do that.
Greg. It doesn't go to
Goes
all
to
of us.
Greg.
Yeah, I
Greg
didn't
needs to
say
bring
send
us-
it to the whole
yeah.
board, I
And
said,
Greg
can you
could
send it in
send-
an email?
She
Perfect,
could
I will
send
do
it out
that.
to us.
Okay, I think I'm confused about why we're having, a non-wage staff person do all of this manual labor. Megan doesn't get paid.
Well, she suggested all of it, so.
If we're correcting Greg's work, then what they're asking is Megan's pointing out these discrepancies she sees with the line items. If Megan wants to send that email to Greg and say, okay, listen, you're missing 72 line items. These are them. Greg needs to present to us a proposed budget, either showing those or explaining why they're no longer relevant. They might not be relevant. They could be totally irrelevant because our co-op has
And
changed.
that is one solution. Another is that Greg gives an accountant the budget from April and the current one and go, what's missing? Fix it. Hold me accountable.
I hope that we can have somebody do that in the next 2 weeks, but I think that
Whatever.
is not maybe
in a short time,
realistic.
yeah, short
Not
time
when we
frame.
have to
Not
vote
in
on
the
it
summer,
in
and
July.
every institution is starting their fiscal year right now. This is something that should have been done in April,
Okay. Well, and this board has done a lot
absolutely.
from scratch, especially with all of us being brand new too. So I'm glad that, I think it was you that brought it up first night to bring an accountant or a CPA or whatever on board. So,
Does the
well,
village, or I mean, does the township have one? Why are we not utilizing township resources? We are a township library.
But we're independently governed and
It doesn't
operated
matter.
there. We don't pay them for their services, the township
They
does.
write our checks, so who is their accountant? Because they have to account for that too. They're accounting for the checks that we write on that bank account.
I
That's
don't know
part
if
of
they have
theirs.
an accountant or Jen
I think
the treasurer.
the treasurer
does
may
know.
actually be doing
There could be something there.
Megan?
When we first started, the first year, I know you weren't here yet, the first year, somebody came in and explained this to us. Do you remember who that was?
The auditor, I think, came in the first year, did a
Was it?
presentation.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah, it was his first presentation he ever did.
Maybe that's, I mean, it was like 4 years ago, so I don't remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Okay. So we wanna put the other budget to bed. We wanna approve the upcoming budget. Everything can be amended along the way.
We wanna establish a financial committee.
Establish a financial committee, we asked for that to be put on the agenda. Along with,
And potential bylaw change.
bylaw changes, let's go look at that. Yeah, let's go to page 9.
Am I missing a page?
Oh, sorry, it says page 9 over there, but it says page 6 on
Oh,
top
okay,
of the
sorry.
actual page. Alright, if you read through, Greg, is this your proposed change, Article 7?
Yes.
For the purpose of providing transparency in local government and fulfilling their fiduciary duty, the board will create and appoint a finance committee at its annual election of officers or anytime thereafter to perform the duties listed below. The board will consist of 3 members of the established board, chosen by vote at the soonest practicable meeting date, if not chosen at the annual election of officers. Number 1, meet at the end of each fiscal quarter to thoroughly review the preceding quarter expenditures and revenues or present to the board at its next meeting. 2, any non-budgeted expenditures exceeding $1,000 must be brought before the committee and approved at its regular or special meeting before being acted on by the entire board. So approved just means we think it's okay, but now we still have to get approval from the full board.
Because a 3-member committee
Can't approve anything, right? Okay.
Is this going to prohibit, example, furnace goes out, it's 2 days after our last board meeting. We have to pay to have a special meeting to approve a furnace, or would you just be able to, is that what that's saying?
I think I could certainly add language that would say, in case of emergency.
Well, I don't know if I see it relevant to change it from 5,000 down to 1,000. I don't think $5,000 in it is an issue, but I do think that, a whole new employee is. So I think the 5,000 is fine. But how do we build into this, including hiring? Is this a place to build that in? Or should that go to a different place?
I think this would cover hiring, because
All
we're setting a limit.
expenses,
Yeah,
physical and personnel. Services, physical items, and personnel. But I do think keeping it at 5,000 is appropriate, because if you do have something go down here, now everybody's gotta go to a special meeting to buy a furnace, you should be able to buy a furnace.
be able to
You know
buy
what
a
I
furnace,
mean,
right.
like, we gotta have heat.
But we would need to then reevaluate the budget, because if we're looking at, the furnace goes out and that's a $9,000 expense, it's coming from something. It's not budgeted, so it has to come from something.
But if
So,
it was
I mean, people-
9,000, it would be, a special meeting anyway.
Right,
Like, you know
but
what I
even if
mean?
it
But-
was 5,000, that $5,000's coming from somewhere. We don't have that kind
Okay.
of money chilling, so, I mean,
Well,
I think it's
yeah,
fine
we
to
don't
make
have-
that call, but we would then need a special meeting anyway, cause it's coming out of something, or the financial committee figures that out.
But
I don't know.
we do need to tighten up, because previously this board operated with a lot of money left over. They sat on a nest egg and we're spending it. We're hoping to spend it soon anyways to build this library up or fix the interior or whatever. And we're operating at what we're bringing in.
Right.
So we do have to tighten up. But at the same time, we don't wanna restrict you from buying a new furnace cause it's negative 10 degrees outside and you need a fix right now.
Maybe 2,500 and go halvesies.
I mean, most companies, when they're dealing with these kind of things, bill it anyway, it's an invoice, it's
Right.
not.
The
you know,
employee
so-
handbook under the director's position could address reporting in director's reports or reporting to this is going to be a new committee. So the employee handbook under your job description is gonna have to reflect that too, I think. So we could add an additional amendment over there in the handbook to say something along the lines of any expenditures exceeding $1,000 must be brought before the committee. But you still don't need permission to do it first. you just need that for $5,000 and over, it can stay the same? What do you guys, what's your vibe?
I think it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 1,000 is too low.
And so you report anything $1,000 and over, but you can spend up to 5 without having to wait.
Convening committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, what's the other? So you added, for next month's agenda, solicit grounds and cleaning bids.
Yes.
And, I feel like at some point you and I were talking about, possibility, you had said something about, oh, you won't be able to give any raises for 3 years now. Is that a thing that you mentioned?
What I mentioned, I think to you, was that the raises I gave in this past fiscal year are good for 2 years.
Okay, and I just wanted to make sure, because I think that it's, well, I'm not sure, I'll just ask a question. Will we still be able to give living wage raises annually?
If you choose to do so, yes.
Okay, so I just wanna make sure that we're not,
I think,
preventing that with any of your solutions that are proposed. I wanna make sure that's something that we don't prevent as living wage raises, even though they might probably make 18 an hour and higher right now. The cost is still gonna go up every year for life.
the board has the ultimate power to do that, yes.
Okay.
We do need to keep that in line with other libraries our size.
Yeah. I think that's it for my notes. Oh, the meetings on the website, that's good.
What was I in back here?
Oh, sorry.
No
Megan?
worries, I was still kind of processing. And by the next meeting, next regular meeting, we're going to have the financial packets again in the board packet,
Yes.
like we used to.
The big one.
Thank you.
Who can contact the attorney? Is it the president, the director, both?
Both.
Anyone from the board? Is it? Okay. Is that good? Is that a precedent we wanna set? Or should it be the president only can with the director? Is that a question for the attorney?
I would feel that the president has the power to contact the attorney at will.
Well,
Absolutely.
That's what I was thinking, I'm like,
my reasoning,
cause you're gonna have legal questions that come up just in your, I know how you peel onions and like, literally like
my
get down
reasoning
into
is
details.
this, not every future president is necessarily going to have, relevant questions. So giving an elected official the right to call an attorney and rack the bill up for the library might not be.
Then that board needs to look at who they voted in as
The
president.
president.
Yeah.
That, I mean,
That
you can't
can't-
tie a future president's hand on that.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
And again, and I didn't have time to fully, but like, we paid a retainer, correct?
She took a written, I forwarded all that information.
Yeah.
So typically when you pay a retainer, it's kind of like your banking hours, basically.
Yeah.
Like so you should be able to call up and ask your attorney a question and they're not sending you a $300 bill, it's part of the retainer.
Yeah.
And then after that, if they need to represent you in a situation or drive over here and be present for a meeting, they bill you for those hours.
Right.
But like, that's what I'm saying, like, I feel like we have this attorney and we're almost just like afraid to use it unless we absolutely have to, and like, we really, I
Well,
think.
yeah, we're broke.
Well, true, but my point is we need them. We needed them, we need them now, we're going to need them next year. Like, we're doing big things with a lot of money and moving money and getting money correct. And
Yes.
so this is the time, and why we needed it.
You're gonna have the videos on the website Saturday.
Yes.
When will your employee evals be done? I felt like you told me you were in the process of those
I would think they should be done by August.
by August, okay. And so, when was the board ordinarily supposed to have the director evals done? Wasn't it like January?
January of each year, yes ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So that works out really weird this year. So I think it makes sense to do the directors after the employees are done, especially if some people are going to be reviewing the employee evals in order to evaluate the director, but the board's gonna be flipping.
In November.
Okay, good point. Alright, so I know this year we're awfully terribly late, but what we had previously done wasn't working. And the solution that I found was getting a copy of the village councils for their village manager, and I changed the wording and made it relevant to director. I didn't have to change too much, it was pretty dead on, so.
So you're suggesting we do,
Each board member goes through it, and we all,
are you suggesting that in September, after the August evals are done?
and then this year's is just really late. I mean,
That will be after the audit too, which would be a very good.
No, but
time.
even if you did that, you could continue to just follow suit every September. Really?
or January might even be okay too, to go back to it, but,
Your choice.
because if it doesn't go back to January, I think that that'll just need to be changed in the bylaws then to September, whichever.
Yeah.
That'll be a choice for whatever board at the time.
Exactly.
Joe,
When are these due?
what?
The,
Oh, like 7 months ago. But they weren't, because we didn't have
well, if
these
I
yet.
can do that.
Is that what this is?
Is that what this
I'd love to
is?
go back 7
Oh.
months.
But we didn't have them yet,
That would make it December. That would
So-
be nice.
yeah.
So you're saying,
Remember the first year that we were all here, I did an evaluation of the director, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, you know? And then since then, I'm like, we've gotta do something different. So when we did Jerry Walker's eval on council, I went, you know what? This could be a good tool for this board. So this is my,
Well, I think it's a little lengthy. I think it's a little still in some places.
well, we can get feedback after we do it. You know, I think that's a great idea, get feedback on what you thought about the evaluation tool itself.
Sure.
There's nothing to say that we can't amend it. And make sure that you think everything in it's relevant, necessary, or that something shouldn't be added, whatever. And, as far as a rubric, Jerry Walker said, he looks at the 3 as, if someone averages a 3, they should be fired. So 3 doesn't mean you're average, you're good enough. 3 means, just keep that in mind when you're scoring.
Okay, that's way different than like any job
What?
I've ever worked at.
Yeah.
So every
This
job
is
I
from
ever
Jerry.
worked at is like impossible to get like the best, and then like average or like even above average is like good. Like above average would be
I would
like
agree with that in a
impossible.
professional setting.
Every time they're like, it doesn't actually reflect on you. This is just what we have to do, and they're like,
Always find room for improvement, like they
Well,
can never say
and
you're
I-
excellent.
I think it's important that we agree on what the rubric stands for. So
Yeah.
if we say 3 and up is average, good, and excellent, and all of them are adequate for the position, then okay. But we would need to look at, okay, at what point would we say maybe we need to consider a performance improvement plan or termination or something? Would that be a 1 or a 2 or a 3? So general thoughts.
because I don't necessarily.
I haven't
agree
actually
with
looked
that.
at this, so I don't know how to
No,
comment on it.
take a peek at the
Yeah.
questions. We're not making any decisions, we're
No.
just looking for
No, I
vibes.
know, I was just saying,
I'm
so,
not saying that I agree with what I said. Like, I think it's a silly thing that they do. Like, it's a corporate thing.
yeah.
But like, my new job is like that. Like at the school,
Mhm.
and like,
So
in my
mine
opinion,
works.
average is perfectly fine.
Well, and village management isn't the same thing as library director, so
Yeah.
what he said doesn't necessarily apply here either.
Okay.
I think what you're trying to say though is the way, because you took a tool that another municipality is using and we're using it as a model to create a different modality here. You're saying that the spirit of this document though is based on that, like that's how they do it.
Well, I think the only important factor is that we all agree on the rubric.
Okay.
Cause then we know that we're all saying the same thing, we're saying, if we say right now, 3 is average and 3 is fine, and someone gives a bunch of 3s, we all know what that means fine. But if we agree that 3 is like, dude, get out of here, and someone gives a bunch of 3s, we know what they're saying, we just need to agree on the symbolism here. So does 3 mean average and good enough, or does 3 mean crap?
Or should we be looking at this like under an educational standpoint, are they effective? Cause in my world, I'm evaluated on if I'm effective, highly effective, and stuff like that. Effective might just be your 3 or average, and effective is just fine. If you are an effective leader, that's okay. Are you highly effective? That's spectacular, but.
Okay, so I think we can all agree that 5 means above and beyond. 1 means not effective at all.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about the rest. 1, I like the term effective. 1 is not effective at all. 5 is,
What about proficient? So 5, highly proficient. 4, 4 proficient. Let's see, I don't know. I feel like 5 is a weird number.
3
Like 1
meets
through 4
expectations.
would be better.
I get that one a lot,
Yeah, we-
like in my job performance, that's the language and the verbiage that's used is
Meet or exceed it.
meets expectations, or like, okay, sucks, needs improvement, meets expectations, above
Yeah.
above average, and, proficient.
Let's stop there.
Like, I have a
No,
5 on mine.
I think 5 should not be there.
Just like, are you failing at this? Do you need improvement on this? Are you doing your job? Are you doing an amazing job? That's really the general. And this has nothing to do with you. This is, I'm talking about like the employers and in the companies we work for. I've been evaluated 3 times now in the company. Like I actually prefer the verbiage. It feels less personal and more
Job.
like you're task oriented, and it's not a reflection on you. It's like who you are. It's a reflection on.
Yeah, there's
Okay,
Kristen. and
to improve
there's
yourself.
so for now, since these are already made just for this single first evaluation, and then we'll do more input after everyone's answered all the questions and has more of a feel. For now, 1 will be not effective at all. 2 will be needs to improve. 3 will be meets expectations.
Hold on, needs to improve.
3
Three
will
is
be
meets expectations.
4 will be proficient. I know there's not a lot of difference there from 3. And 5 will be highly proficient.
More numbers.
And Joe?
I am not in agreement on 3 being whatever the village manager said about 3.
Yep, no, we scratched that. We're doing,
Not in agreement on that at all.
we're doing meets expectations is 3.
You like.
3 is good.
If that was the case, give me his evaluation form.
3 is gonna be meets expectations or average, whatever you wanna call it. Alright, and,
When do we have to have this back by?
7 months ago.
7 months ago.
Yeah.
No, so, what are we agreeing on, you,
November, I thought.
November? So
I
that,
thought you said September.
yeah,
September, yeah.
September, right? So if you wanna write that on your folders, have them ready to turn like the September meeting, that'll give us time to finish the audit and for him to do the employee evals. And then you and I will get together on how to go about the board being able to review the employee evals.
I would
That you
assume
did.
that it would just be done in a closed session after a meeting, or like in a meeting.
Okay.
Well, you would have to,
Yeah, I think
Because
that
that's
makes
where
sense.
it's
the Open
closed session.
Meetings Act,
Yeah.
that's in personnel, yeah.
Yeah,
No, but that's what I'm saying, that's what they do when they do Jerry Walker's employee eval, y'all go into a closed session, that's to do
Yeah.
the evaluation. But if you're doing something that has to do with staff related,
Mhm.
then that's what you
that's
do.
one of the 11 reasons you can do a closed
Do a
session, so
closed
yeah.
session.
So if you can schedule a closed session for us,
Would that be August?
so that would be, yeah,
September.
Well, no, cause
If
we're
we-
doing yours in September.
Oh,
right,
so you wanna do,
So you need to have your employee evals done before the August meeting, right?
well, he can have it done, we can have, what date do you plan to have them done by?
let's have them done by August 1st.
Okay, and then we can have a closed session meeting and review
August
those.
1st.
His, not us doing him yet. He's gonna have the employee evals done on August 1st.
You want yours by August 1st, I'm changing some things.
So I'm sorry, so August 1st, he's turning in those,
He's turning-
and then we'll have the August meeting and have a closed session at the August meeting, correct?
I'm not sure that I'll turn in anything, I'll probably just bring them live to the meeting unless, do directed otherwise.
No, I think that's
That's
appropriate,
appropriate.
we can review them there,
I
yeah.
wanna make sure I bring dinner.
And I like the
I
idea,
know what date.
I like the idea of going from the regular meeting to the closed meeting, that way we don't have to schedule another date.
You, say that again? What do you wanna do?
He wants to bring the actual evals to the closed session.
Oh, I thought you meant the actual person.
Oh, no.
I was gonna say,
No,
wow, there's a new.
Talk about putting someone on the spot. Yeah, no, and then we'll have to have another closed session to review our evals of the director. And maybe we do that September's meeting, same thing, September, so August and September, we'll both have a closed session meeting right after the regular meeting.
Okay.
Well, isn't that effective? I give that a 4, solid 4.
I give it
Watch your mouth, Joe.
It's important to be
Yeah.
effective.
The next one's the agenda, do you have soliciting bids from other library master plan makers to do master plans? Thank you.
Do you mind, since we're in this session, if I took 60 seconds to just share with the board, about my lunch with Vince and how we got to this agenda item?
And speaking of which, do you have add library design to next month's agenda? And I believe that's it for me, and yes.
Okay. Several days after our last meeting, Vince reached out to me, just cause he's literally next door to my house, and said, hey, do you have time to talk about the library? And I thought, I'm really not the person to be talking to, like, but if you wanna meet me for lunch, then let me get as much as I can, you know what I mean? So we're not all going, hey, we've not heard from him. So we met for like 2 hours at the cafe. I basically took the concerns, the questions, as much as I could remember to my knowledge to that lunch. And I just said, and I took a screenshot of it, I was like, can you just, like, draw me a picture, do you have an idea? Do you have, like, what do you think, if money was no object, what would you do here? Like, what is your best suggestion, you know? And basically I'm gonna share with you what he said to me. Number one, he said if he could do, he thinks the best thing to do to this building is to keep this building and add an addition on to the back, like where the front door is, or the back door where you come in. And basically add the addition, and it's like a big skylight, all glass windows, it overdoes the space. He drew like a little picture. And then he said, and I did share with him that one of the previous folks that came in had given us a bid, said that grassy area back there is completely swamp and nothing could be done on it. He begs to differ and believes he could elongate the parking lot, not a ton, but just enough to compensate for the square footage for the addition, so that we're actually adding more parking, not less. He said that whatever, like if you got a quote from a big builder to come do, and they're like 1.8, he thinks he could do the exact same project, basically what he did for the village offices. So roughly around $750K to renovate the whole kit and caboodle-ish. He asked if libraries are allowed to take out equity loans or mortgage. I had asked you, I did send Greg, the director, a email that sharing this with him, and he said that if we are looking to pass a millage, you know, hopefully it will, it might not pass, we don't know. He supports that. He said he would pay extra taxes to support his library, you know, and that was great, but if that were the case, the question was, though, in a situation like this, can we, because we own this building, I don't know, we, as in the community owns it, can you take a loan out where you take the cash in hand plus that, instead of spending 200+ grand to paint and make it pretty, and then we still need another $500,000 to add an addition? You could do it that way and do it in phases if a millage passes. I told him to please call you, because he said the first thing that he could guarantee is he could get preliminary drawings, which is what we wanted, right? Like something to look at, by the top, whatever you call him, seal architect that he works with. And typically that cost would be $10,000, and he could get it for between 2 to 3 tops. And that is something that I think if we are gonna ask for a millage, we do need to have a long-term plan and a picture to tell people about. So I did ask him, he said he would call you right after that lunch. It is my knowledge he has not done so.
Right.
So at this point, I just wanted to share that, so it's transparent, that that's what I tried to get, that's what I've communicated to Greg in April, and, that's where we're at, and then here we go. So, I just wanted it to be known.
Jill?
I think they bought this land. I think the Holly Township Library bought this land.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not owned by the community, like you're thinking. It's owned by the Holly Independent Township Library, or whatever we're called. That's who owns this land.
But the taxpayers paid for that, therefore they own it. That's what I mean by ownership, is, this isn't a mortgage where Greg owns it, or April owns it, or
I
Tina
get it all,
owns
I
it.
understand all that, but I'm saying there must be some way around it, because all these other people build on everything.
That's what I'm saying, I'm curious, and I'd like
They
to
go
know
for
from
bond
the
issues, they
attorney
go for all
if we
kinds.
can even do that.
I think we could have a nice conversation with the fact that the township was willing to finance the village's new office if we went into business with them, why doesn't the township finance ours?
They aren't even in there, that building.
I don't
All
care.
that running
They have
roar,
money.
and they haven't moved
The
in.
township has money,
That's true.
we should.
Well, I beg to
absolutely-
disagree with you, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be cantankerous. I wouldn't trust this township for as far as I could throw all of them collectively. They might have money, but they don't deal straight up.
There's
I'm sorry.
there's strings with their money.
Right now, they're so convoluted, they don't know which way they're going. They're sitting on a $1.9 million building that they can't even seem to get their act together on it. And you want them to fund us.
I want them to give us $1.9 million and that
That
we
would
know
be-
how to use.
Yeah.
That would be nice, but that isn't gonna happen. Well, it might happen with a new board, I don't know.
Well, I actually have a little input here. When we had the heat wave, I called Supervisor Collis and asked if the township had any spaces for a public cooling center. You know, Craig had already said the library can certainly, you know, on the days they were open, and he even offered to open it on, what was the holiday that week?
Juneteenth.
Juneteenth, thank
Yeah.
you. He even offered to open it for that, but we had the American Legion open instead. And, the village council chambers were open that day. They closed on a different day, as they're allowed by federal law when a federal holiday falls during the week. So George said, well, you know, April, we've got that nice building over there sitting there empty because no one else joined in with us. So we can't open it to the public because no administration is there. So my general feeling about us successfully garnering any money from the township is not hopeful. I feel there's some resentment that was shown to me that day when all I asked for was if there was a cooling center. Amy Hillman did call me later and say we could use their meeting room at the township office that's downtown in the village. So I reflected that in the Facebook post, but Amy Hillman called me about that, not the supervisor. But I guess we're always welcome to solicit that. We
No
can
one
ask.
wanted to go in with them.
We can ask for money.
I mean, we did ask him to come give us a presentation and he
Didn't
didn't
show
show
up.
up multiple times.
Yeah, I was gonna say multiple times.
So sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, she don't call
Could
no
be on
shows.
the official record.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why they don't just give us that building, we could just expand
Oh,
it
I
since
know.
we're not using it.
There's an idea, but we don't wanna pay 1.9.
I'm just saying.
Did
There's the
anyone
best
else-
idea I've heard in a long time.
Anyone else have any closing comments? Tina?
No.
Mr. Director?
No, ma'am.
All right. This meeting's closed.
I'm hungry, let's go.
Popcorn.
I don't want that, I want, oh my god, I got an air fryer gifted to me, it was the greatest thing that's ever